Welcome to Mayhem Highlander, where questionable decks meet questionable pilots. For this week, Canadian Highlander is back on the menu with two grindfest powerhouses throwing down. With that being said, let's check out the pod today. First, we have Craft on Grixis Welder, an artifact deck that seeks to use many layered artifact synergies to win with a combo. And Pilch on What Do You Call This Act, an Aristocrats deck that seeks to use cheap creatures with death triggers combined with drain effects to win with a sack-fueled drainout. And now, with each pilot in their respective corner of the screen, let us begin. And for those of you in the Ames area, stick around to find out how you can save 10% off your next Mayhem Ames purchase. Craft plays a Mox Sapphire, a Brainstorm, drawing 3 and putting 2 back on top, a Spire Bluff Canal, and Expedition Map, and passes. Pilch draws, plays a Polluted Delta, and passes. At his upkeep, Craft cracks Map, fetching up a Blackcleave Cliffs into his hand. He draws, plays Blackcleave Cliffs, and Inquisition of Kozilek, looking at Pilch's hand and discarding Mox Jet. At the end of turn, Pilch cracks Polluted Delta, paying a life, and fetching up Endatha Triome onto the battlefield. The turn moves to Pilch. Pilch draws, plays a Silent Clearing, and passes. Craft draws, plays a Marsh Flats, and at the end of turn, Pilch casts Eladam Recall, fetching up a Grist, the Hunger Tide, into his hand. The turn moves to Pilch. Pilch draws and puts a Blood Crypt into play untapped, paying 2 life. He casts Grist, the Hunger Tide, and upticks her, creating a 1/1 insect token and milling a card. At the end of turn, Craft cracks his Marsh Flats, paying a life, and fetching up a Watery Grave onto the battlefield tapped. The turn moves to Craft. Craft draws, plays a Playful Strix, drawing a card when it enters, a swamp, and channels Twin Shot Sniper, destroying the insect token. Craft passes. Pilch draws and upticks Grist, creating a 1/1 insect token and milling a card. He sacrifices the insect to help cast Diabolic Intent.
The monster is not going to stand back.
I don't have to show.
Sick.
Yeah.
Where? I still think you're finding Blood Artist.
Well, I think so too.
Please don't try and fake it. Anything else?
Yeah.
Okay. Was it a land?
Yeah.
Is it Blood
Are you
Artist?
casting this Blood Artist?
Probably.
He puts a Temple Garden into play untapped, paying 2 life, a Blood Artist, and passes. Craft draws and plays Expressive Iteration, looking at the top 3, putting 1 in his hand, 1 on the bottom, and exiling Retrofitter Foundry. He plays Retrofitter Foundry, a Verdant Catacombs, and moves to combat, attacking Pilch with Strix. Pilch takes the hit, and in his second main phase, Craft activates Foundry, creating a 1/1 servo. He cracks Verdant Catacombs, paying a life, fetching up an Underground Sea onto the battlefield, plays Thoughtcast, drawing 2, and passes. Pilch draws and plays Knight of Autumn, destroying Retrofitter Foundry when it enters, and upticks Grist, creating a 1/1 insect and milling a card. Pilch passes. Craft draws, plays the Mycosynth Gardens, and moves to combat, attacking Grist with Strix. Grist takes the hit, and Craft passes. Pilch draws, plays a Woodland Cemetery, and upticks Grist, creating a 1/1 insect and milling a card. He plays Woestrider, creating a 0/1 goat when it enters, and at the end of turn, Craft flashes in a Hullbreacher. The turn moves to Craft. Craft draws, improvises in a Kappa Cannoneer, gaining a +1/+1 counter when it enters, and pays 2 life to help cast Phyrexian Metamorph, entering as a copy of Cannoneer, with both Cannoneers getting a +1/+1 counter. He plays a Drossforge Bridge tapped, putting a +1/+1 counter on both Cannoneers, and passes. Pilch draws and downticks Grist, sacrificing a goat and paying 4 to destroy Kappa Cannoneer, draining Craft for 2 and passing. Craft draws and casts Loris of the Dream Den. In response, Pilch exiles a green card from his hand to evoke Endurance, sending Craft's graveyard to the bottom of his library in a random order. Then, Loris resolves, and Craft moves to combat, attacking Grist with Kappa, Strix, Hullbreacher, and a Servo. Pilch blocks the Servo with Roastrider, and Hullbreacher with Knight of Autumn. Hullbreacher, the Servo, and Knight of Autumn die. Craft is drained for 3, Grist is destroyed, and the turn moves to Pilch. Pilch draws and casts his own Loris of the Dream Den, plays Grim Initiate from his graveyard, and passes. Craft draws and activates the Mycosynth Gardens, making a copy of Kappa Cannoneer, and plays a Silver Bluff Bridge tapped, giving both Cannoneers a +1/+1 counter and unblockable. He moves to combat and attacks Pilch with Kappa Cannoneer. Pilch takes the hit, and at the end of turn, Pilch sacrifices Grim Initiate to Woestrider, scrying 1, draining Craft for 1, and amassing 1. The turn moves to Pilch. Pilch draws, plays a Brindleshote, recasts Grim Initiate from his graveyard, and passes. Craft draws and move to combat, attacking Pilch with both Cannoneers, but unable to find another artifact.
Why are you dead?
Well, I have 9 on the board,
He has 9, 10, 11.
Oh.
and I can also go.
Yeah, and he can also swing.
Okay, got it.
He had to kill me. If he drew an artifact, I was dead.
Yeah,
if
if
he
I drew-
didn't, then he was dead.
Okay.
Yeah, I drew a land. I drew the 3rd land in a row.
Craft sees the writing on the wall, and Pilch wins the game. Game 2. Craft plays a Silver Bluff Bridge tapped and passes. Pilch draws, plays a Blackcleave Cliffs and Inquisition of Kozilek. Looking at Craft's hand and discarding Galvanic Blast, Pilch passes. At his upkeep, Craft casts Brainstorm, drawing 3 and putting 2 back on top. He draws, plays a Spire Bluff Canal, a Chromatic Star, and passes. Pilch draws, plays a Savannah, a Scavenging Ooze, and passes. Craft draws and cracks Chromatic Star for black, drawing a card. He plays a Watery Grave tapped, a Sword of the Meek, and passes. Pilch draws, plays a Nurturing Peatland, a Hunted Witness, and Zulaport Cutthroat, and passes. Craft draws, plays an Underground Sea, Saheeli Sublime Artificer, and a Blood Fountain, creating a 1/1 servo through Saheeli and a blood token when it enters. He downticks Saheeli, making his blood token a copy of Silver Bluff Bridge, a Shadow Spear, creating a servo through Saheeli, and passes. Pilch draws, plays Liliana Heretical Healer, and passes. Craft draws and cracks his blood token, discarding and drawing a card. He plays an island, equips Shadow Spear to a servo, and passes. Pilch draws, plays a Woestrider, creating a 0/1 goat when it enters, and sacrifices Hunted Witness to Woestrider, scrying 1, draining craft from 1, creating a 1/1 soldier, and exiling Liliana, returning to the battlefield transformed as Liliana Defiant Necromancer. He upticks Liliana, with both players discarding a card, and passes. Craft draws, plays a Swamp, and passes. Pilch draws, plays a Noble Hierarch, and downticks Liliana, returning Hunted Witness to the battlefield. Pilch passes. Craft draws, plays a Bloodstained Mire, and Feeling the Flood, passes. At his upkeep, Pilch sacrifices Hunted Witness to Woestrider, scrying 1, draining craft for 1, creating a 1/1 soldier. He draws and plays Imperial Recruiter. In response, Craft cracks his Bloodstained Mire, paying a life, and fetching up a Steam Vents onto the battlefield tap. Pilch fetches up a Grist the Hunger Tide into his hand and downticks Liliana, returning Hunted Witness to the battlefield. Pilch passes. Craft draws and plays Ichor Wellspring, creating a servo through Saheeli and drawing when it enters. He follows it up with Thought Monitor, drawing 2 cards, downticks Saheeli, making Wellspring a copy of Silver Bluff Bridge, and plays Urza, Lord High Artificer, creating a Construct when it enters.
I'm sorry, I might have just drawn the nuts.
Yeah, I was like,
Well, no. You want to see the last card I drew?
yeah, sure. Oh, you just winning.
Well, no, I don't net life.
Okay, you're correct.
But I do. I have infinite mana. I like to generate or demonstrate infinite mana and spin my
cast your entire deck.
Yes.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Sorry, I might have just drew
No,
this.
I saw
drew the stones.
I saw this into this. I'm like, that's a little worrying.
Drew the stones off that Thought Monitor.
With Thopter Sword oopsed into, Pilch sees the writing on the wall, and Craft wins the game. Game 3, baby! Alright. Pilch plays a Blooming Marsh, an Ignoble Hierarch, a Mox Pearl, and passes. Craft draws, plays a Silver Bluff Bridge tapped, and passes. Pilch draws, plays a Taiga and Minx and Boo Timeless Heroes, creating a Boo when it enters, and upticks Minx, giving Boo 3 +1/+1 counters. He moves to combat and attacks Craft with Boo. Craft takes the hit, and Pilch passes. Craft draws, plays a Wooded Foothills and cracks it, paying a life, fetching up a Badlands onto the battlefield.
This idiot.
Yeah.
Mox.
Yeah.
Trigger.
Yeah.
Mox. Trigger.
Oh my.
Cast Mox. Trigger.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to discard this Inventor's Fair.
Did you try?
Ensnaring Bridge. Trigger. Oh! Go.
With an explosive follow-up to Minx and Boo, Craft passes. Pilch draws and plays Knight of Autumn, destroying Ensnaring Bridge. He follows it up with a Noble Hierarch, Grim Initiate, and downchecks Minx, sacrificing Boo, destroying Iconoclast, and drawing 4 cards. In his second main phase, Pilch plays the Scavenging Ooze and passes. Craft draws, plays Nighthill Spellbomb, and immediately cracks it, exiling Pilch's graveyard and drawing a card. He moves to combat and attacks Minx with everything. Pilch blocks 3 soldiers with Grim Initiate, Knight of Autumn, and Scavenging Ooze. 3 soldiers and Knight of Autumn are destroyed, Minx takes the rest, and Craft passes. At the beginning of his upkeep, Pilch creates Boo. He draws, plays the Marsh Flats, and upticks Minx, giving Boo 3 +1/+1 counters. He moves to combat, attacking Craft with Boo. Craft takes the hit, and Pilch passes. Craft draws, plays and immediately cracks a Chromatic Star, drawing a card, and follows it up with Expressive Iteration. He looks at the top 3.
I'm dead.
Okay.
I can't put enough toughness in the way to block blue, because this is the only creature.
Craft sees the writing on the wall, and Pilch wins the match.
For those of you in the Ames area who stuck around, come to Mayhem Comics in Ames this week and ask for the YouTube discount. You'll be asked the question, who won? Answer correctly and get 10% off your purchase.
Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to catch future videos, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.